Hi, everybody. I'm Lindsay Andreotti with Brilliance Enterprises. I'm here today to share with you some interesting and exciting information about how to get your idea into a business context. And the first way to do that, before you ever even think about doing a business plan, is to do the business model canvas. So what is it that I mean by a business model canvas? Well, this was a tool that was created by Eric Ries about, I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 years ago. And it was actually one of the ways to simplify how to think through all of the questions that an entrepreneur needs to think through as it relates to creating a new company. I've used it with hundreds of entrepreneurs in several universities and in many contexts, supporting people to just think through what is it that they are actually working on and how can their business become a reality. So let's walk through the business model canvas today. I think you'll have a lot of fun looking at it. It has 9 parts, and you can see that here in the picture. What I'd like to share with you is I'm going to go through each piece, and then we'll have a little bit of time at the end where I can share with you some of the advantages of doing this over business planning. So step 1 is to think about your value proposition. What is it that you're bringing to the market that people actually want? Are you building something? Are you creating something? Is it digital, virtual, and why do they want it? What pain are you solving, or what gain are you creating for someone? And what exactly is it that your customers will pay for? Sometimes people call this segment the offer. What's the offer you want to make? And thinking about it right up front is one of the first things to do when planning out what your business is going to become. The second step in the process is to dig deep into the customer. See, customers are probably the most important thing that you can do in a business as you're creating a company. Knowing who that customer is, who they are demographically, where they are on the face of this earth. What is it that they're interested in? What other things are they doing? How is your product or service going to help them with the things that they're doing? And what would they do with your product or service in the life that they're creating for themselves? Thinking about your customer, who they are, where they are, and what they do is probably the number one thing you can do for your business right at the very beginning, because they're also the first people who can write you checks for the product or service that you're bringing to the world. So think about your customer, segment them, kind of consider where they might be separated from each other, and then put together this information in your business model canvas. All right, once you know your customer, then you can start thinking about how are you going to get your product or service to that customer. That's called a channel. So in the part of the business model canvas called channels, here's where you're thinking about how does your product or service get to your customer? Is it physical or virtual? Are you using retail in a box store, or are you going to be doing something that's more like an Amazon service delivery? What is it that you're going to do to get that thing that you've just created into the hands of your customer? And here's probably the most important thing. How will you find the channels that you're thinking about? For example, a lot of people who create and invent food items think, oh, I'll just go sell it at a grocery store. Good idea to go check out what does it take to actually get something into a grocery store. Take a few minutes to walk to your local store and ask them how their products end up on their shelves. Many grocery stores actually make their own stuff now. And they will look at you kind of funny, like, we don't do that. We're not going to buy it that way. Or we work with a distributor who sends us the things that we have. So really map out what your product and service are, and then you can find the channel that will best deliver it to the customer that you identified in the earlier section. All right, once you know your customers and your channels, now you can start thinking about how you're going to keep those customers. So, the idea here is, how long does it take actually to get your first customer? Talking that through with someone and or actually really meeting with a real live customer is one of the best things you can do. Ask them what they would need to become an early adopter of your product or service. Show them what you've got in terms of an idea and ask them what it would take. Defining your customer relationships are critical to the success of your business. You can find them, then you got to keep them, and then you want to grow them. How will you engage with them over time? And what will the journey be like when they start ordering your product and participating in your business? Identifying that up front is key to your success, and I know it will be for your customers as well. The next segment is how to look at revenue streams. So where will the money actually come from? Will you be collecting money through a website, or will you have a subscription model that somehow manages people sending their credit cards every month? Or will you have revenue streams from a variety of different products or services? Or will you have revenue stream, a singular revenue stream from one product or service? The idea here is for you to think through what exactly is it that your customers are paying for and how will that revenue show up in your bottom line. It's an important factor to think through right from the very beginning. You might need tools and technologies to manage those revenue streams, and you might have to set up some different processes in order to accept revenue from a variety of different inputs. So just be thinking about that from the very beginning in this revenue streams category. All right, once you know that, now you can start looking at what are the key resources that you need to have in order to make this business actually go. I tend to think of it this way. You know, if you really want to get your business off the ground, you need to find that first customer. And that for that first customer to have that relationship or engagement funnel that you've created, you might have to do some key things to get to that place. And that takes maybe a little bit of infrastructure, perhaps some technology, a website, maybe a car or van, or it might take actually building your first product somehow. What financial resources will you need in order to get to that first customer? What things will you have to buy in order to get to that first customer? What people on your team will you need to have, and will you have to pay them to create your website or build your business card or generate the first chart that you're going to sell? So those ideas need to come in at this time. And the last but certainly not least is how much time do you have to devote to this new business idea? Time is probably the number one resource that most people have today, and getting time on other people's calendars, from customers to other stakeholders, which we'll talk about shortly, is a huge part of the process. So try to map out how long do you think it's going to take and how much time do you have as a part of your key resource conversation in your head. So now we're on to the key stakeholders segment of the business model canvas. And here, what we're looking for is who's going to be associated and affiliated with your business that you've got to manage their expectations. You have employees, you have vendors, you'll have suppliers, you will have stakeholders that look like investors perhaps, or just business partners, people that are supporting this progress of a business from the very beginning. Take a look at what their expectations are for your company and make note of what it is that you want to have in the relationships with those stakeholders. This is a very important part of the process as well, because you do want to keep those initial stakeholders really happy. In most of the businesses that I've started, I've had advisory teams and advisory boards, and those advisors really want to see the entrepreneur succeed. They're a key stakeholder because they want to help you. So knowing what their expectations are and how they can participate in your business is a big part of this project. It's also really important to think about employees. Will you hire them full-time? Will you hire them on a contractual basis? I recommend keeping your variable costs lower by doing contractual employee arrangements until you can see how the business is actually going to grow. That leads us to the next part of the process, which is your key activities. You've got to think about, here you are today, you've thought about your customer, you've considered all these options, you're examining your stakeholders, and now you have to engage. You've got to get into some action. What are those first key activities that are going to move you from today to a first customer? This is what goes in the key activities segment. And this is a great time to think about what you're really expert at. What's the leverage that you've got because you're good at certain things? And then maybe think about who can help you at the things you're not so expert at in these first key activities. This is going to actually get your business lift off. And it's these first 10 to 20 key activities that you engage in that will let you know if this business is going to grow. And last but certainly not least, we have the cost structure. You've got to estimate how much it's going to take to get to customers and get to growth. The best way to approach this is really to look at what are the big costs for your business. In most businesses, it's labor. The cost to have people doing work and activity is the number one thing. Taxes, insurance, fees, other things that cost money, technology, the backbone of your business, those all have some kind of cost. And it's a good idea to make a list of the fixed costs, those things that you're going to have on a repeatable basis, like rent and technology rental and so forth, and variable costs, which can be things like labor and other components that make your product what it will be. Also, the final thing to think about here is to get comfortable with how the cash flow is actually going to work for your business. When do you expect to see revenue? And do you think that you might have enough funding available to you to get to the point where you actually have revenue from actual customers? Those are the critical questions to think about. So that's the 9 parts of the business model canvas, and I'm really grateful to have been here with you today. I hope that you'll take some time. It takes a couple of days to walk through a business model canvas, but I will tell you that this is a far faster and a way better process than building an entire business plan that takes weeks and sometimes months to get to. What the canvas does is it allows you to quickly and easily go from an idea to, I think I could try that. And that's what entrepreneurs do. They move quickly and they iterate quickly and they take the time to find a customer, because as soon as you've listened to about 10 to 15 to 20 customers, you will get a great sense of whether or not this business and this idea could be made into something really powerful. So I welcome you to try it. Take out your business model canvas, look for more information in the description box below, and be sure to connect with the Department of Commerce. They can definitely share more information for you to grow your business in Washington State. Thanks for listening. Ciao for now.